Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jump Up Supercast, the only podcast on the internet that's going to GDC. Everyone else is already canceled. I'm Will, and joining me this week, Brandon.
Happy birthday, Pokemon!
Ills.
I already have the coronavirus, no thanks.
And Seth.
I'm gonna spread it to Isabel as soon as I see her.
What a
Fucking what?
dick.
What a rude maneuver.
Yo,
Clearly, someone
second person I talked to
40 hours
today.
of Animal Crossing talk last week.
please.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Wasn't
give
even me.
Isabel a big hug. When I see her
Well,
this
don't do that
weekend, I'm
either if you
giving her a
potentially
hug.
have the COVID or coronavirus. Don't do that either.
Well, maybe she's
Yeah.
gonna give it to me.
Jeez.
You know what they you know what they do in those situations when you greet each other in if you're like in like a sick ward, you bump elbows. They don't even do fist bumps. You bump elbows. That's how you say hello to each other.
There you
That's
go.
not gonna stop me from hugging Isabel.
Wow. Both of you are doing her, but for different reasons.
Apparently I say hello to everybody on the train.
Very, very strong hellos. Besides that, how are we doing this week, boys?
Great.
Surviving.
I'm not dead.
All of these things are true.
Nervous
Nervous.
and excited.
Why are you
I'm
nervous
nervous
for?
because I might get coronavirus this weekend, but I'm excited because I can play Animal Crossing.
I mean, apparently it doesn't really kill you if you're like under 40. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
it's like the flu. We're gonna talk about the coronavirus now.
we actually were, is the thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
But
segue.
So I was going to do this after, but here's the thing, right? Well, let's talk about next gen in general, right? Because the leading headline this week is Microsoft continues to announce more details about the Series X. They refuse to stop, right? And we'll go over that stuff. Some of this might be familiar to you if you've listened to this podcast before or you've been on this podcast, because there was a leaker that said a lot of this stuff back around Game Awards time. Pretty much 100% nailed it, but there's a few extra little tidbits in here. So Phil Spencer, just apropos of nothing, shows up on Xbox.com and says, hey, by the way, we have 12 teraflops of GPU in this baby, and then confirmed that they're using the latest Zen 2 and RDNA architectures. I'm just going to quote him directly here. This allows us to have twice the performance of an Xbox One X and more than 8 times the original Xbox One in terms of GPU power, and over 4 times the processing speed of an Xbox One.
God damn.
Wow.
That is, and with that, they promise to, you can do more, you can load faster, all the things that they've been promising so far, they continue to say, and they confirmed that if game developers so desire, this is the first console that will be able to run at 120 FPS. If you
Wow.
are a wild enough guy. Which
Okay.
I wonder if it's weird, because I don't know if you've ever gone to play old games on emulation where you can uncap the frame rate.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's like, wow, this game just looks super smooth. But sometimes these games were like calculated with 60 FPS in mind, and things get wacky. So, because it made me think of, obviously, he confirmed they're using the same type of backwards compatibility they did before, where natively games will be able to just run better, sort of like being on a PC and selecting more powerful options, right? That it'll inherently just think it's running the old game, but because it's stronger, it can run it more smoothly.
That's nice.
4 generations of games.
4 generations. And with that, they mentioned smart delivery, which is their official term for basically...
This is such a dumb name.
Yeah, it's very much like a market-tested thing. They didn't talk to an actual human being when they decided the name. But essentially, it's the thing of, if you buy a game on the Xbox One, if you buy the game on the Series X, you own it on all versions of an Xbox that can run it inherently.
Yeah. Really cool, though.
Yes. So they already confirmed for all of their first party, they intend this to be the case. And they said for third parties, they can do it if they so desire. And we already know of one big one, which is Cyberpunk 2077.
Nice.
Yeah. And so this is an interesting situation because they're, as they said, they're clearly building off of the backwards compatibility work they did with Xbox One, right? But this type of stuff is foundational improvements. The things where it can natively run better, you have to do that on a base level when planning your backwards compatibility. And so the thing that'll be curious is, will this apply to PlayStation? Because we are now we haven't heard from Sony officially on this. We know that there will be backwards compatibility with PS5, which is a market improvement on both of these current generation consoles at launch, right? But sometimes there are situations in gaming where you say, why can't they do this? And it's because they would have to change the foundation of how they built their system, right?
Yeah.
And that applies to like Switch saves with Animal Crossing last week, right? The way that Animal Crossing is structured is they would have to change the foundation of how their cloud saves are stored. So they just couldn't, right? They had to make this new option. Same for PlayStation and name changes, right? The reason it took a decade is because all of their player information they're storing, they had to completely change the way that they store that information to be able to let you change your name. And so there's the potential for this to not apply to PS5 because they've just been building it a different way. But do you think that will matter when it comes time? And I mean, because Cyberpunk is launching in September. These consoles are probably launching in October or November. Do you think going to someone and saying, hey man, this Xbox One game will carry forward to Series X, but the PS4 version won't? Do you think that'll matter? Or is it because this is a month away, people won't really care because they'll already have beaten the game and moved on?
No, I think it'll matter because it's always nice to have free upgrades. You know what I mean? Like you may have played the game on Xbox One, but like if you boot up your Series X and have nothing else to play, you give it a try and it's probably markedly better. So why not?
Sure, I agree. And with that, I guess there's also the question of, do you think when it comes to cross-gen, do you think that there will be people that will adopt this like Cyberpunk?
God, I hope so.
Okay. Because I think that this could very quickly become a thing where, like cross-save suddenly became this like issue in a very sort of quick way, right? Like it went from like 2 years ago, people were like, cross-saves, that's weird. Crossplay, what's that? To suddenly within the span of like 6 months, it became an issue that people were complaining about when it wasn't there.
So wait, you're scared of something not being there, or what?
Well, do you think that Cyberpunk, if EA's there, right? And because let's say EA's evil company in this instance, right? Nondescript evil company, also named EA. They're like, we're not going to do this, right? Because like a sport game, for example, right? We're like, an annual franchise like that. Do you think that they're scared of being next to Cyberpunk where this does exist, right? Do you think this will be widely adopted by third parties, or do you think it's going to be just like the cool guys that are going to do it?
I honestly don't think EA is scared of pissing anyone off, really.
Sure.
But since this is an unnamed company, we'll say, I mean, I hope it influences them to do something similar, but I don't know I don't think one company doing it is going to be enough of a pressure to do it.
Yeah.
It's not like an expected thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, CD Projekt Red has had a history of like doing this with Cyberpunk, where like they do like a lot of goodwill gestures in terms of like what they promote with their game with Cyberpunk. So if that hasn't already convinced other companies to follow suit, I don't think this will, especially with EA, I don't think this will actually convince them to actually follow suit and just give out free updates. It'll be a nice surprise, but I doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah, there's always hope.
Yeah.
One day they'll see the error of their ways.
Perhaps. And I think the thing that's tied into that is, just like a minor thing for CD Projekt Red is like they just updated Witcher 3 on Switch to where you can now do cross saves with PC, right? Months after launch. Yeah. And so I'm interested because sort of in general, there's more things we can get to, but a lot of this stuff is sort of bringing on traits of PC gaming, right? Like, when you buy a new PC, it's assumed like my controller that I had from my old PC is still going to work, right? But that wasn't the case for consoles for a long time. With the Series X, it is, right? The thing of if I bought it here and then I get a new machine, I'll still have that tied to my account. Was always the case on PC. It wasn't on console. Now it is, right? And so I think it's interesting because sort of when you see these two different sides of how gaming has existed for a long time, right? And people on console side and people on PC side have not always been, there's been,
fuck the PC Master Race.
Yeah.
Fuck them.
Yeah, there's been that kind of stuff for years. It's interesting to see them sort of meld together.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, competition, man, grows makes everything better, apparently.
Sure. Yeah, supposedly. Most of the time, let's say, right?
Hopefully. That's the ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of that competition, a few other details they gave along the way. They said it's hardware, accelerated DirectX ray tracing, which basically means on the ray tracing, if you don't know what it is, essentially, I'm going to overly simplify this by a ton. It allows you to actually simulate how light would bounce in an environment, right? So you place a light source, and by this being on the hardware side of things, they can apply it to hopefully to nearly universal amounts of games. And essentially the idea is like, instead of it could tell, hey, the light would bounce off of the ground here and then shine over here, right? Which sounds like a very nebulous thing, but there's actually a large part of sort of game development that people now say, if you listen to like conferences, is essentially making up tricks to make it appear to be doing that, right? And so now all that work can be put towards other things, is sort of what Phil Spencer's saying in this article. He's saying now this is the thing that can just be done natively on the console side of things, leaving developers time to work on other aspects of the game. And the same thing applies to audio, right? So now they can better simulate sound waves, right? If someone's around the corner, you know, we've all been in like games where you're on the other side of a wall, but they didn't like have sound bounce, so you just hear people clear as day 2 rooms away, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Stuff like that would go away by having this inherently on the console side of things, which I think is interesting.
That sounds like really useful for like multiplayer games. You know?
Yeah,
I could see that happening like in a shooter. Like hearing sounds is a big part of it. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, because we had COD was the first major first-person shooter to implement it, and Battlefield, right? Last 2 years, and they have side-by-sides, and like it is very funny to see. One, like you said, the sound is actually you don't hear nearly as much once you turn it on, is the secret, right?
Mm-hmm.
And light doesn't spread nearly as much as they've been saying it does in games. Like, you go into a back alley and it's actually like lit like a back alley, you know, instead of it being like somehow these like corners where there's no light are glowing and I can see what's happening over there.
God, these next gen games look like garbage. What's up?
I mean, I can only think of like stealth games, right? That's the first thing that my brain goes to, right? Stuff like that, where this is neat. It's like Ghost of Tsushima, maybe. And then the other thing they said is variable rate shading, which this is, once again, we're not Digital Foundry, but essentially, as Phil Spencer says, this allows, it's patented, they say, so they're very proud of it. Rather than spinning GPU cycles uniformly on every single pixel on the screen, you can prioritize individual elements of specific game characters and important environmental objects, right? So basically they can say, hey, if there's like a big tower in the distance that's like the focal point of what's happening, we don't have to spend as much, we can tell the engine itself, focus on making that look good, and the stuff that's like behind you don't have to show as much, right? And there's a little example of this in like Control, if you play Control, because they intentionally don't spin as many polygons on the main character's face when you're playing versus when you're in a cutscene, because it's a third-person shooter, you're looking behind the back the majority of the time, right? And the rest of the game runs better as a result.
That's a good trick. And Boundary Break, and she says they're gonna have a fun doing an episode on that.
Yeah, I mean, this is stuff that I think is interesting because we'll get to GDC, but these are things that it's weird to just have straight up be said to the public, right? This is stuff that you would think would be way talking to developers, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a directness in the language that I kind of respect. And then I think the biggest thing for an end consumer thing now is they've confirmed you can suspend multiple games at once.
Yay!
Awesome. Which is
very cool.
So essentially, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
I mean, as the sort of self-describes itself, but like essentially, you can now have multiple games, and you don't have to worry about either swapping to one to the other, and you can load up exactly where you were before, even through things like console restarts. They say now they can actually still store where your place was in the game.
Oh shit!
Which is, I mean, it's weird because it's weird to think about. 5 years ago, we didn't have this at all, right? Suspending games didn't exist on the PS3 and the 360. And now it's weird to think about going back, right? Like, there's such a different experience of just turning off your console and not having to worry about it, right? Versus before.
Yeah.
And now this is fully going to be that, right? Like, you won't have to think about much at all about it to be real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I fucking love suspending games. It's such a good feature. Like,
Yeah.
So
the more you expand it, the better it is. I love it.
Yeah.
And that's mostly coming from the SSD, which they mentioned before, right? And it's funny because both of the companies said we have a secret sauce that lets us do our SSD better than the other. We now know both their secret sauces. They're extremely identical. They're very close. they both found the secret sauce, but it wasn't a secret, but it is still sauce.
It's like I finally realized the difference between Coke and Pepsi.
Hey, that's Then the one other little thing before we wrap up on this and sort of just talk about the wider situation. They're doing dynamic latency input, which basically means you may have noticed this, especially if you play rhythm games. When you go in the HD TVs, you typically have a little bit more latency than you used to back in the CRT days, right? But we've been getting closer and closer every time, and a lot of TVs have been making advancements in that specifically. And the Series X is going to be updated for that. So there will be less latency from wireless controller to console and from console to TV. So essentially, the promise here is that it's supposed to be nearly universally more responsive for every game that you play. Because it might be 10 milliseconds, right? But that can sometimes make all the difference in the world, right?
Yeah.
Which is a nice
for a gamer, sure does.
Yeah,
I would assume that's mostly for like fighting games.
Sure.
Well, for rhythm games, like you said.
The shooters.
I mean, high level play in any game is sort of relying on Twitch, right?
Yeah.
Reactions a little bit, unless you're like, I was about to say StarCraft, but no, that's extremely Twitch focused. But
and I don't think you're going to be playing that on Xbox.
No.
No.
Well, you can use keyboard and mouse, so maybe you could. But either way, that's sort of the long and short of it, right? So we now have, this is our fourth update for Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and the next, and Scarlet, back when it was called that, in 8 months, right? Which is a lot. And it now sort of becomes the situation where we're past the point where Sony had announced the PS4 at this point. Right? And I had said for a long time, I'm just assuming they're going to have a conference in February. That clearly didn't happen. I was wrong. When do you think we will start hearing more about PS5?
It's got to be soon.
Yeah, I mean, fucking Microsoft's just taking all the air out of the room right now. Like, I don't understand. Why aren't they saying anything?
They're waiting for that price. They're waiting. We need to know the Series X price.
They did. And I mean, the other thing that we didn't talk about a couple weeks ago, or maybe we did, but I missed it when I was on the episode, but there is apparently a problem with finding parts for these things to manufacture, for both of them.
Oh, yeah.
And so I wonder if, like, also the prices of the parts is going to matter in a way that, like, they're not sure about right now either. Which might explain why they're both tight-lipped about the prices.
Well, I mean, does coronavirus have anything to do with this, with them getting the parts?
Well, I mean, I think it ties a lot into Sony, which we can sort of transition to here, because seemingly,
I actually have a real good question though before we do this.
Yeah.
What's going to happen first? Are we going to learn about more details about the PS5, or are we going to get a Nintendo Direct?
That's a real question.
God. Imagine getting a state of play before Direct. Feels bad.
I think a state of play might be more likely the way they announce a PS5 at this point for a couple reasons. I'm not sure. But I don't know. I think it's weird. Obviously, we've gone a long time without a Direct, as people love to complain about. We had an Animal Crossing Direct, but a general Direct.
Well, a general Direct. Today, as of this recording, we've tied the longest streak between general Directs.
Yeah, which was, I mean, this sounds maybe
176
crass,
days.
but wasn't it when Iwata passed away? Wasn't that the big gap?
Maybe.
Anyway.
There was a mini Direct, though, for between that one.
Yeah.
That was when we had that, like, mini one in, like, January or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
But either way, I mean, we'll have to see about that. But I think, the thing that Nintendo and Sony both share is that they are Japanese companies, and seemingly Sony has put a company-wide kibosh on going to major events because of COVID, coronavirus, whatever you want to call it, right? And before we get into this, well, first and foremost, obviously, this is like concern 150 when it comes to a viral outbreak, is how it affects video game consoles.
Concern number one, what is wrong with you?
But we are a video game podcast, so we're going to talk about it. So GDC, seemingly by the time you hear this, might be canceled, is the interesting situation. Last week, Sony pulled out of the PAX East and GDC this week, and Facebook Gaming did as well, which is Oculus. And then this week, we had Microsoft Game Stack, which is a division of Xbox, not going. Epic's not going. Valve is seemingly planning to not go, it appears. And so, all because of concerns about coronavirus. And this is interesting because GDC is the last sort of vestige of the place where all the industry's in the same place. Because it used to be GDC and E3, but after E3 became a public venue, that aspect of the conference got hurt strongly, right? So this is the place where once a year, if you're a company, you can go and talk to a bunch of different developers, a bunch of different publishers, all in the span of a week, right? That's gone now, seemingly. Even if it goes on, 2 of the 3 major console manufacturers aren't going to be there, and they're the 2 that are launching consoles this year. And so this, I mean, and it should be said, like, you know, don't want to be alarmist, but like they're talking about potentially postponing the Olympics if this continues, if coronavirus continues to spread, right? Which this is not a guarantee. We don't want to cause you to freak out or anything, right?
It's all over. Just board up your windows. Don't leave your house.
Buy a lot of canned beans, but don't freak out.
Yeah.
So that's just to say that there's no event that's too big to not be called off, right? There's no event that's bigger than the Olympics. And so you start to have that conversation of, if this continues to be a problem and like major gatherings are discouraged, suddenly things like State of Play and this thing that Microsoft does are going to be the way that you have to get your messaging out, you know? And do you think that was Sony's plan? Do you think that they're going to suddenly have to, because I mean, last time they flew people out to do the PS5, play it the day of, right? If that's off the table, but that was what they were planning for, they might be scrambling right now.
You know what? I think Sony released the coronavirus. I'm sure of it now.
There are people that have semi-genuinely that conspiracy, by the way. Gamers are bad. Well, they're not saying, but there are gamers that are like, Sony's just using coronavirus because they're not ready. And it's like, I don't think that's the thing, guys.
Good God.
Oh my God.
Check their patents.
Check their... Ooh. Nah, that's the place people look at. They did... Yo, speaking of patents, this is a complete pivot. One of the patents they had this week, a vitality sensor inside your controller, baby. It can track your heartbeat and your sweat. It can tell if you're a sweaty boy.
Double yikes.
What the fuck is the point of that?
It's
Sony makes
weird.
a ton of patents that don't do anything. Nintendo makes patents that are dumb and sometimes show up. Sony does equally dumb patents, but they never show up. So it almost feels like more of a waste of time. But sort of, I guess, when it comes to new consoles, I'll throw this question to you, right? Do you think that there needs to be that kind of thing where you fly the press out and do an event, or do you think that we're past that with the era of direct messaging that we have now?
I think we're past that. Because a lot of things are changing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, E3 is dying, and it's just the whole thing of getting your information out is completely different now.
Sure.
I know it's a whole thing with investors, right? Like, you want people to get the good word out there and have hands-on with it. So I think there's still that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think that digital, just announcing it online, because of how widespread everything is and how fast everybody talks on the internet, you know, it's just as good.
Sure. I mean, we said that the PS5 logo, we made fun of it. It was the most liked image in Instagram history or something, right?
What the fuck?
What? It beat the
You
egg?
fucking simps.
It didn't beat that egg, did it?
I don't know. I just know that it got a lot of likes in 24 hours. It was I can guarantee you that much, right?
Maybe the most likes in 24 hours. Because there was this whole thing with Kylie Jenner, and she had the most liked picture, and then people were like, let's get a picture of an egg with more likes than her. And then we did it.
We did it. We got the egg. Congrats to the egg.
But can it play games?
Because this was part of Sony's thing when they announced they weren't going to E3. Was like, hey, we're not going to be at E3, but we're going to more fan events than we've ever had before, baby. We're going to be at over 100. And it's like, suddenly we might be at 30. Right, or who knows, right? And so I think that, real life sometimes interjects in a weird way. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see how these companies handle, parts not being there potentially, right? Large gatherings being discouraged in like your home country, right? Like Japan right now is recommending don't have large gatherings. Pro wrestling events are being canceled. What are we going to do?
Finally. Get them all. Just don't congregate with other people. It's that simple, guys. Come on.
Only congregate on the website. Congregate.
Yeah.
It's still the egg. It's still the egg, by the way.
Congrats to the
nice.
What a relief.
Well done, Dan. Thank God.
But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. This is going to be because also there's the Switch. The Switch was announced 3 months from, or excuse me, not 3 months, 6 months from release to it coming out. Right, yeah. which is not a lot at all. That's the shortest we've ever had. And it used to be that consoles were announced 2 years beforehand. This generation, they were within the year, and Switch is showing that you can do within 6 months. So maybe this is all hand wringing for nothing. Maybe Sony's going to be perfectly fine. But
we hope so.
But didn't Switch have like a actual presser as well?
Like they did. They had a January thing where they flew people out, and the next day they were at PAX South, where young Muzamil got to play. Next day. What a world.
Ooh.
But that's stuff for the future, right? And speaking of companies that are planning for the future, Platinum announced 2 and 3 of the Platinum 4.
Ooh.
You might remember number 1 was the Wonderful 101 Remastered. 2 and 3, not as much, but there's still stuff. Project GG, the game that Hideki Kamiya is directing. First game he's directed that's going to probably come out since Wonderful 101, because Scalebound was in the middle there. And he describes it as the third in his superhero trilogy of unrelated video games, which is Beautiful Joe and Wonderful 101, and this will be the third.
Yeah, he said it was like about a giant hero fighting kaiju or something like that.
Yes, there's a teaser trailer. It is clearly CG. But they show this big kaiju destroying things. There's a dog. It's trapped underneath a piece of rubble. And you are this unseen hero that saves the dog. And he gets real big. And it shows him grabbing the kaiju. And then it ends the trailer. Right?
I didn't see the trailer, but I was really hoping you were going to say, and you are the dog.
And that would be Tokyo Jungle 2. Fuck. Baby, we're back.
Oh my God.
I'm already in love. That sounds like the best fucking game ever.
But I think this is interesting because we talked about when they announced the first Platinum 4, the president of Platinum, whose name escapes me at this moment, said that they've been working on a big new IP that's unlike the Platinum games they've made before for a long time. And seemingly Project GG is not that. It's another thing. They said that the fourth one is going to probably be that, is the way that they verb it, is that it'll be a whole new project. The final thing is a whole new thing for Platinum. But are we excited, I guess, for this from Kamiya, right? Like I said, it's been a long time.
Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't we be?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
It seems earlier than I thought it would be, to be real with you.
What do you mean?
Like, Project GG and having the CG trailer is, I mean, I guess the guy just, clearly, he may have just been busy managing the company of Platinum, right? Because he's high up in there, in the hierarchy. But also, I think Scalebound may have done a number on him, and so maybe he just didn't want to get back on the horse.
Yeah, didn't he say he was like depressed or something?
Yeah, I mean, he said the year after Scalebound, he was like in a huge funk, right?
Yeah.
But I
that makes sense.
Yeah, which I think is just interesting that like he's getting back on it, and he's sort of going with the familiar in a certain way, right? This is his third. He loves superheroes, clearly.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see what it looks like, and this is coming to all consoles. They confirmed that much. So
it's awesome.
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
Yeah, and that's also, once again, it's an IP they say that they entirely own. So that's this is straight up the first one that they own entirely in years.
Very cool.
And the third one is a new studio for Platinum. They're opening one in Tokyo, and they say that this one is specifically focused on live service games that they want to work on. And that because at first I thought this is going to be mobile and a half, but they're like, no, we're making games for consoles. We're making games that like we want you to keep showing up over and over, right? We're going to be doing updates, but we at Platinum are not really super used to doing this, so we're bringing in a new team of people, as well as a couple of veterans at Platinum to sort of try this new thing.
So what are we thinking?
Well,
MMO?
I was about to ask that of you.
Well,
I feel like
I don't know.
doesn't
Division
engage with
3,
live
we're
service
doing
a lot.
it. Yeah.
It's true. We don't.
But do you think, I mean, having a company like Platinum that I think we are all big fans of, do you think that that's enough to get you to potentially try it out?
I mean,
So
I trust
what?
them to do anything, really.
Yeah.
It's enough for me to take a look at it. I don't know if it's enough for me to play it.
I trust them to do anything. They could, like, yeah. No matter what.
It's not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I mean,
say
I
they
trusted
can
them to do that too. I think
Yeah.
that was Activision. Fuck that.
Yeah, that was extenuating circumstances beyond their control, I would say, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because obviously, like I said, I'm surprised it's not mobile because Japan is all about that. They're all about like gacha games started. You know, they have this huge relevance in Japan. You know, Fate Grand Order is a game that a couple of years has made more money than the entire PlayStation division combined. It was close this year, and PlayStation had a very good year this year.
Jesus Christ.
And so I'm kind of shocked that they're not going for that market. But I mean, clearly they know console development more, so maybe they're just sticking with the familiar, which I'm cool with. You know, I would prefer a console game than a mobile game when it comes to Platinum.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So like I said, the fourth one, we'll still have to see what that entails, but like I said, this is clearly a new era for them, and they have
Yeah, they got a lot of plates spinning.
Yeah, because they're also still working on that Babylon's Fall game, Bayonetta 3, like
Yep.
you know.
Jeez.
They're big boys now. They're all grown up.
Yep.
So that'll be interesting seeing what that final game is too. So you know, we're still not done probably with Platinum and what they're going to be talking about.
We ain't never done.
Never done. But then the last thing, well, not the last thing. We have one more thing after that. But Yacht Club had a little mini direct, right?
Heyo.
Not literally a direct, but come on, it's a direct. Wherein I was just expecting Cyber Shadow, and we got a lot of Cyber Shadow, which you may remember is a game that they are not making, but they are helping to publish. And that's coming out in fall. There's a lot of footage. I would recommend just checking that out visually to see if you're into it, but it's very clearly in that 8-bit revival, you know, vein.
Ninja Gaiden.
Ninja Gaiden
Yeah.
is the first comparison.
I'm gonna play it this weekend.
Oh, PAX
I'm
East.
excited.
How about that?
There you go.
But then they announced two other things. Shovel Knight Pocket Dig, which is Shovel Knight continuing to just do whatever, everything. That's his whole thing.
Hell yeah.
Where
Showing up everywhere.
he is a puzzle game now. They do show a trailer for it, and the closest comparison I would make is like Wario's Woods, which is you haven't seen. Essentially, you are Shovel Knight. There is enemies that are dropping down. You can defeat them by hitting them, but you do. But if they're connected to enemies of the same type, they're all destroyed in one go. Right?
I was
But
thinking more like Tetris meets Crypta and Necrodancer kind of thing, but
there is, yeah, because it does. I mean, at first I thought it might be rhythm based. It looks a lot like Necrodancer because it's very clearly tile based too, right? But I think it's interesting that, because I guess the final thing they said is Yacht Club's working on 2 new projects, right, themselves, which is this is the first time they're working on something that isn't tied into that initial Shovel Knight Kickstarter years ago, right?
yeah.
And I kind of think that neither of them are going to be Shovel Knight related at this point.
Wait, they're still working on Shovel Knight Dig, right?
Well, they're not working on Shovel Knight Dig. That's another developer.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so they have 2 different Shovel Knight games that are in development that aren't being made by them.
I got you.
And so I feel like this is such an interesting tack that we haven't seen an indie dev go for, right? Which is loaning out their IP to keep it alive in some ways while they're working on their own stuff. And so, you know, it might become this situation, this like Shovel Knight is clearly going to be their company mascot, right? There's no way you would throw that away. But the next couple Shovel Knight games won't have the people that made Shovel Knight working on them.
I think it's bold. I like it actually. I don't like people being much too precious with their content. Like, it's glad they're spreading it around. They clearly have good roots with the indie community. Like, they're basically in every fucking game. Shovel Knight is.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a game that has indie guest stars and it doesn't have Shovel Knight, did you even have indie guest stars in your game?
Yeah, probably not.
Speaking of, Indivisibles on the Game Club.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you can listen to that, by the way. But I mean, like you said, I think it's also interesting because if you look at the origins of Yacht Club, they all a couple of them worked at WayForward for a while, a couple of them worked at bigger companies, and they were all there was people that were relatively high up in those companies when they left to make Yacht Club. And so I think that it's interesting to see, because like Toby Fox, for example, right? Or like Concerned Ape. These are guys that were working on essentially fan games, right? And then they blew up to have these games that are suddenly 10 million sellers, right? And I imagine there was a growing pains of learning the business side of things after that, you know?
Right.
But with Shovel Knight, it's one of the few examples where the big indie blow up is people that have worked in companies before and have managed this kind of stuff, right? WayForward.
They're prepared for it.
Yeah, they're prepared for it. And so I think it's interesting to see them leverage it in a very different way than, the other sort of big indie standouts, like I mentioned already. And what do we want out of Yacht Club's next game, right? Because they have been so wrapped up in Shovel Knight for so long.
Honestly, this is a company I just trust. Like, just like Platinum, I just trust them at this point. Like, whatever they put out, I'm probably gonna buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what I want from them, considering all they've given us is Shovel Knight. So I just want something that good.
Do you want them to stick with sort of the retro revival stuff, or do you want to see them?
I don't care. I don't. Yeah. As long as it's good, I don't care what it is.
Sure.
I want them to go wherever their heart takes them. Just fucking do it. Yeah.
Whatever genre, whatever art style, 3D pixel, whatever it is, as long as it's a good video game, I am not picky.
Yeah, they've earned that goodwill. They've done amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it should be said. We say it often whenever we bring them up, but like how much Shovel Knight has it almost became unwieldy for them how much they did with this one game,
Yeah.
Like originally they wanted to be done by 2015, and we just got King of Cards late last year, so you can run the numbers on that one. But yeah, so I think, like you said, by doing stuff like that, you earn this faith in the people that that gets an audience that will show up to just watch a mini direct that's only about you, right? And I think that's really cool. Let's see. Besides all that, there's one final piece of news, baby. Ills, I apologize, but we got some hard numbers for Pokemon.
Ah, damn.
But not the games.
Hey.
The Pokemon themselves. It is Pokemon Day. For the last week, they did an extremely scientific poll of people wanting to go to Pokemon of the Year and just putting in their favorites on Google.
Yeah, makes sense.
You could vote once a day.
You could vote once a day, and you could vote one for each generation, which I think has some effects on the results. I think everyone has looked at the results, I assume at this point. Saf, have you seen?
I have seen.
Saf,
I don't think you're going to spoil
you
anything
can't do
for
the guessing game.
It's not going to be a spoiler, right?
It's not going to... Well, no, it's just I wanted to see if anyone could guess. Number one, you may know him from Smash Brothers Ultimate, Greninja. Number one.
Not
Shocking.
That surprising, honestly. Yeah. He's won a lot of polls in
back
Japan.
In the X and
He
Y
won
days. In the magazine polls, which are if you read manga, is Lord. Naruto became a different series because of magazine polls. So there's
is that true?
Yeah, Sasuke did so well. He wasn't supposed to be that prominent originally.
Fucking magazines ruined it. They ruined it.
Originally, he wasn't
Bakugo is constantly number one in the My Hero Academia polls, by the way.
They love their bad boys. That's the whole thing. The Sasuke as an Naruto character is hilarious. He wasn't supposed to be in originally, by the way. The magazine people said you need to add in a bad boy, and then he said,
"God damn it, God, so much wasted effort."
But besides that, a few notable things. In some way, Greninja's forebearer Lucario is number 2, right? Yeah. It's wild how these two stick around. It's just as cool. It's cool. 3, Mimikyu. I will not say the word Pikachu on this list.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Very strange. I think
Mimikyu is great. It's great that he's number 3. He achieved his own dreams.
Yes.
Yep.
He's the only Gen 7. So I think that the benefit of picking by Gen helps him here because I think Mimikyu's just head and shoulders. You know, people love him. In comparison to all the other Gen 7 Pokemon. Number 4, it's that Charred Lizard, baby. Right there. The OG on the box art, Charizard.
The Big Daddy.
And then
I'm just happy he's not in the top 3. That made my day.
He made the top 10. He's still alive.
Game Freak's crying right now. They wish the whole top 10 was Charizard. They need to make 10 different Charizard forms. Maybe they'll get you next time.
They're getting there.
Worth saying the type of people that are nerdy enough to go to fill out a fan poll.
Yeah.
Are the type of people that are going to resent Charizard. You know.
He still made it.
He still made it. Number 5, Umbreon. Now this is a wild one. This is a Gen 2 boy, by the way, or girl.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And right up next to it is Sylveon. So that's 2 evolutions back to back, right?
That's
great.
So weird.
Good showing. The best 2, in my opinion.
Disagree, but that's fine. That's political. That's
polite. Okay, my favorite 2.
What's the best 2, Will?
Espeon and Glaceon.
Okay.
Where are they on the list? That's all I gotta say.
And then 7, Garchomp. Entirely.
Hey, that's a good one.
He gets the bump from being associated with Cynthia, who people are still horny for 15 years later.
Are you? That's not the only reason he gets a Garchomp is a cool Pokemon.
It's a helpful
He's
bump.
a fucking dragon shark. Come on.
You know, I'm just saying. People love Cynthia and love Garchomp.
I mean, maybe he gets a small bump, but I mean, you can't deny the fact that he's cool looking. He's a dragon shark. I mean, come on, dog.
A dumb star on his nose.
Wait, Cynthia was that blonde girl, right?
She was.
Yeah.
She was the champion.
Yeah. Number 8, Rayquaza. Only legendary on here, by the way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Shocking.
Wow. You too. Get out.
Get him out of here.
Where's Moltres? My boy.
Moltres sucks, dude.
I mean, what? No, Zapdos is my boy. Fuck
Okay.
Yeah, that's far more admissible. Gosh. Moltres, what a weird Pokemon. And then number 9. Speaking of horny, Gardevoir.
Yeah.
Made it on here.
I don't get it.
We don't want to.
It's
the first Pokemon that looks vaguely like a girl that's not Jinx, who we don't acknowledge anymore. And so there's a bunch of people that are just really weird about this Pokemon.
Sad.
You know, that one got the bump. That one got the horny bump. I'll give you that.
Also got the horny bump. Number 10, Gengar.
What the fuck?
Round boy.
Who picked Gengar?
Hey, people love Gengar, man. Yeah.
That's so strange. He has like a shitty ass design. Oh my god.
I will say I think Haunter is cooler looking, but I
think
Gengar is fine.
There's a couple of the original Pokemon. They intentionally hid the cool guys behind trades, right? Like Alakazam and Gengar were both behind trades, right?
Yeah.
Machamp was behind a trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that because of that, there's sort of this still latent, oh, Gengar's special, dude. I got a Gengar, right? Even 20 years later, which is maybe what helps him get to number 10.
That's quite a theory.
That's,
I don't know, but
it's a game theory.
Yeah, apparently.
And then the final thing they had, there's a Pokemon named Zarude. He's the new mythical. He's a dark grass monkey. I hope he can learn Sandstorm.
Good joke.
And besides that, that's it. That's Pokemon.
Yeah, I was disappointed because it was a monkey, but he's alright.
Brandon hates monkeys.
Why don't you like monkeys? What the fuck?
It is very weird for that to be the first mythical, and it's a grass monkey after Grookey exists.
That's your great grandfather.
It shows him battling Rillaboom in the trailer. Mortal enemies.
Ooh, because Rillaboom's a good vibes kind of guy, you know. He just loves to drum, but Zarude,
Zarude. He looks like the guy who was kicked out of the band. Yeah, you know. He just stopped showing up for practice and just, showed up one day late, and they're like, dude.
He's drum and bass. Zarude is EDM. Just that easy. They even have the song for it. So there it is. That is the news. There was a lot of weird stuff in there. Because it's a weird time for video games, right?
When isn't it?
Well, that's true, but there's different types of weirdness, I guess I should say. And
it is a weird time. We the biggest, longest goddamn drought in Nintendo Direct history. So
we're past the point of we're closer to next gen launches that we've ever been without having information on one of the major players.
Yeah.
Just a weird time. But I mean, the one thing that's always there, even during the strange times, is the list.
The list!
The list!
Follow along in the paste bin below, as every week we add games to an ever growing, just, smorgasbord. I can't say the words.
Board? Smorgasbord.
Of good, bad, and weird video games. Last week, we added a video game. It was Gears of War
Yeah.
by Brandon,
Mhm.
which was 44 on this list, which
You
is
did
very
it.
respectable. This week, I am adding, and I'm gonna throw out some games, and I want to know if we've played them, right? Because
Another one who doesn't use the bounty board.
the bounty.
God
Well,
damn
this
it.
is a thing where I think the moment's passed, but I think it's time to talk about. Did you guys, during the heights of it, play Angry Birds?
No.
No.
Well,
That was immediate.
Not a casual.
It's only one of the biggest games of the last 10 years.
Not a dirty casual.
I don't play phone games, dog.
I wanted to add. I specifically thought I want to add a phone game because I think it's important that we have to expand our size.
Then add Fire Emblem Heroes. I played that one.
Yeah,
That's a
Pokemon Go.
Nintendo game.
Pokemon Go.
Did you ever play World of Goo?
Yes.
No.
Yes, but I didn't finish it.
Okay, so would you
Oh,
not
so
feel
you didn't
comfortable
play
adding
it.
it?
I barely remember it. It's up to you. I don't really care.
I didn't finish it either, and it's been a long time. But I mean,
Well, here's
still
one.
talk-
Here's one. And you might not have played this one either, but we'll just keep going. Did you ever play Pac-Man Championship Edition?
No.
Yes,
Saf?
No.
Okay.
I played that one a lot actually.
All right.
Just
Oh, I got one
that
for you.
list.
Fuck,
Okay.
I can't tell you.
No, go
Oh
ahead.
well. I was just gonna say Geometry Wars.
Okay, we can do Geometry Wars. I've no Geometry
Okay.
Wars.
Yeah.
I've never played Geometry Wars. I'm sorry.
No.
All right, we're adding Castle Crashers.
All right. we can
Okay.
do that.
Okay.
That's a game.
Yeah.
I haven't
Finally got
played that
one.
game.
This is one of the first Xbox Live Arcade games. It's significant.
Yeah.
Big
Yeah.
ones. It wasn't one of the first ones. So,
It's very good.
Castle Crashers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a brawler, right? This is a beat 'em up.
Mhm.
4 players. You are playing as these little knights, who are, I suppose, crashing a castle. You don't really do that much.
The beginning
At
of the
the end.
game, I think so.
The
Right?
very beginning, yes.
Well, at the end, isn't that kind of like a castle too?
Sure.
Well, comes full circle.
Yeah, it's poetic. This is a game that is made by the Behemoth, who were a lot of the founding people at Newgrounds, which was a major Flash website for a long time. It's still around. I guess shouldn't use it in the past tense, but it was them making. They had Alien Hominid before this, right? Which was a popular Flash
Yep.
game. And then it got released as a boxed title,
Yeah.
right?
Played it on GameCube.
Yeah. Which
You
by the
played
way,
it on
they're
GameCube?
remastered.
I didn't even know it came out on GameCube.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's how I
you mean
first
Alien
played
Hominid.
Alien
Okay,
Hominid.
my bad.
Sorry. But then I think clearly the thing that better fit their style of games was this new Xbox Live Arcade, where you could sell a game for $20, right? For $15. And it didn't have to be this huge $60 game because almost all the stuff in the game was hand drawn, right? Not in the like Cuphead kind of way, but like clearly like a different style of art than we were getting for a lot of video games at the time.
Yep.
And-
This was like one of the most prominent early indie games.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And it was very distinctive, you right? Like it caught you off guard. There's a lot of potty humor, right? There's a big
Mhm.
farting bear or beaver, I forget which specifically it is, right? That's
There's
like,
a whole part where you're on donkeys and they're like shitting themselves to propel themselves forward.
yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that type of humor in there. But the actual combat has a lot more RPG elements than I think a lot of beat 'em ups do, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Because you have different weapons you can equip, and they have different effects that they do. And then
Stats.
you can have the little
You
what are the things that float after you? Your followers, I forget what they're called, right?
the little buddies.
Familiars?
Yes, and they have different
Right.
effects that you can do, and so it adds a nice replay element to the game.
And you level up. as you play.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You can
put your stats.
Yeah, you put stats in like magic, attack, defense, all that shit.
And so, I mean, is there other thoughts we want to offer about the game before we get to where we want to?
I think it's super cool. There's a lot of good moments in the game. The fucking music is amazing.
Real good.
I really love the fight against the tuxedo knight guy. He was trying to kidnap one of the princesses. But in the game, you have to find all the princesses that the king lost, and that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
The map is pretty cool. There's lots of cool environments. The gameplay, it's a little bit shallow.
It's a little basic.
It gets a little bit repetitive, but it's still very fun to play, especially in 4 players.
Yeah, co-op is really the way to go in this game.
Yeah, definitely. And each knight seemingly has like their own magic attack, which is pretty cool.
And you can.
They've added more knights. Yeah, they've added even more since the game. Like, there's a pink knight now and a white knight.
Yeah, there's a shitload of them. Although the white knight kind of sucks. His fucking special thing is like an arrow or something.
Yeah, you can play as Martin Lawrence as the Black Knight. There's a lot going on.
Sure. Yeah, and as you go along, you collect more weapons. Like, you find them in the area, so it's kind of like a collectability thing. That's part of the game.
Where you go back and you replay levels to find things that you missed and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So, and there's like branching paths on the overworld.
Sure.
Yeah. So a lot. There's just. I'll say the game doesn't skip a beat at all. Like, there's just. It throws you from one crazy situation to another too, right? Like, even when you're going from one area, like just beating up bad guys, you'll have like the moments where now you're on a fish and you're in the water fighting a giant cat, or you're getting chased by this thing through a sawmill, or it's just there's a lot going on. It's really fun.
You fight the giant corn cob. And,
God, that guy was fucking hard the first time I fought.
He was awesome. I fucking love his song. Oh my god. Song is so good.
So all that having been said, when it comes to where we want to put it on the list, I mean, I feel like the other prominent beat 'em up off the top of my head that's on this list is Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
Like, better than that.
I think Scott Pilgrim is lower than I would like it, but also I think it is better than it. So that sort of becomes a non-factor.
Yeah, I agree. Scott Pilgrim's lower than I like it too, but yeah, it's better than Scott Pilgrim. I mean, one, for the fact that it's got actually has online multiplayer, but I mean that's I think it's just there's a lot more going on than Scott Pilgrim had. It's really it's just really good. It's solid gameplay.
It has a ton of replayability. I mean, I just remember booting this up so many times when I had people over. So.
Yeah, even after you beat it too, there's still more to do. Going back through, finding all the animals and the secrets.
And there's also a harder mode,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there are tough battles there.
Yeah.
Personally, where I would put this one's hard. I would I started to get hung up around the Goemon Pandora's Tower area. That's where I started to think that because there's comparable quality of games, I think, right? Which is like in the 90s, but once again, a reminder that these are all great games.
Holy shit. Scott Pilgrim is 104?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
So I think I would put it above Xenoblade Chronicles X, but below Pandora's Tower, maybe? Sort of where I'm feeling.
Bro, I'd put it higher than that.
Yeah, I'd put it higher. I'd put it at least above, like, Kid Icarus.
That would be 68.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I think I'd put it above Uncharted, too.
Because maybe this was just me, right? But there were points where you sort of turn your brain off, right? Because I think that like there's the attack and there's the guard, but there's not exactly like a great combo system in Castle Crashers, right?
That's true. That's true.
And
it is pretty simplified in combat, yeah.
And so
yeah, you have their magic spells and stuff. But
I enjoyed the first playthrough a lot because there's the surprise factor so much that's there, and that's clearly, I mean, that's worth a lot, obviously.
Yeah, but it's very humorous.
But going back, some of it didn't hit on like multiple playthroughs, right? Like it's it's very much it's relying on that shock surprise factor.
I would say similar to a decent amount of games on this list too. So.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
But because beat 'em ups are
Go
shorter
ahead.
in general, right? Is sort of where I guess
Sure.
it rears its head more than like Pandora's Tower in my mind, right? But
I think even though it's shallow and even if it's not surprising, it still kind of holds your attention. It's fun multiplayer. You know what I mean?
sure.
Like I wouldn't suggest playing this multiple times by yourself. That's
No.
a drag.
No.
I've done it. And it's boring. But
Yeah.
it's definitely like it has a good amount of replayability because it's so fun playing with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the multiple weapons, multiple familiars, blah blah blah.
Sure.
The different characters, blah.
I mean, I think I'd be willing to put it above. I think then my next hang up would be around the Alundra Stardew area. Phoenix Wright.
Yeah.
I mean, Phoenix Wright's a game that's not really going to have much replayability if that's
No, but I got more enjoyment out of my time with Phoenix Wright on that first
Sure.
playthrough. Right, and that's obviously a different thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think that for me, those three in particular, like even though it took me a couple tries, and like even like Snatcher right above it, right? I haven't played Hotel Dusk, so I can't vouch for that. There is they all stand out as being like either among the best in their genre or being really unique in their genre, right? With the case of like Alundra, I think Alundra is really unique in comparison to like Zelda clones, quote unquote, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Stardew is just a great reimage of his thing. There are a fair number of beat 'em ups that I would put above Castle Crashers relatively easily. And that's like I said, me personally, and that's I think.
Yeah,
that's with
there's
and
definitely
just
some.
There's
Yeah.
some. I can think of a few. It's hard. I mean, I think still Castle Crashers could be easily top 5 in beat 'em ups for me. You know.
So what's the comparison here? We're making against Phoenix, right?
Yeah, it's around Phoenix Wright, Stardew, Alundra, sort of that area, right? I guess Saf, where are you at? Because you haven't spoken much, but
It's kind of hard because like it is quite drastically different to all those games, and I'm trying so hard to try and figure out like how I feel about this versus all these other games. The main criticism I have is already something that you've actually like talked about, and it is just even though it has a lot of cool things, even though it has a lot of cool references, as well as like a decent art style, it's still quite a simplified combat, and it's the most you get out of this game is like with other people. Like that's where probably the more in depth gameplay comes into play. So like with that, I think this game relies a lot on multiplayer more than single player because
Yeah, I honestly think that's what the game is designed for.
yeah, and I don't know if I want to dock it for just being.
I mean, it's like Left 4 Dead,
multiplayer.
right? Like Left 4
Yeah.
Dead single player is a completely different game than if you're playing it multiplayer.
Or
Yeah.
Federation Force.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to dock it for that, but it is something that needs to be kind of like pointed out.
well, because I mean, even though there's inherently something fun in sharing in the experience with people, right? And the
Yeah.
competitive nature, because there's cool and competitive stuff they have of like score and stuff, right?
Yeah,
And also
You
you get
fight-
to battle
you-
each other, yeah.
Yeah, you fight for the kiss of the princess.
Yeah.
that's true.
Which is neat. But like when I would play with my friends, right, there was more times that I would start with someone and they would bounce off like an hour in than when we would beat it. Personally, in my own experiences, right? And so maybe that's why I dock it more because it's a thing that's like,
Got crappy friends.
well, perhaps
It's actually pretty long for a brawler.
sure.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's not a short game for a beat 'em up
Yeah,
game.
and I think that
Right.
like even though there was the element where like we were laughing along with it, there was the thing of like, okay, like we sort of got where the joke's going to be coming from when we would play it again, right? And when I would play it again, I
Yeah.
obviously would laugh in a different way than like they would when it was the first time, but even it didn't catch them on the first playthrough. And so I think that that's one of those things that's just a different thing because it's hard to like compare how much jokes land for you.
Sure.
Like that's a weird thing to like rank differently for a game.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's why I may be coming from the perspective of things like I think in its own way Phoenix Wright is funnier. Like
Well, I feel like Phoenix Wright has some, kind of shitty moments. Like, wasn't like the second case kind of shit? Was that the one? God, I don't remember which case.
That's the TV one, the Ninja TV.
Yeah,
show.
so that's the one with the Silver Samurai, or whatever it is.
Yeah, that one's. Yeah, I didn't like. I really did not like care for like the middle cases. It was like the first case and the last case were really, really good, and the middle case was kind of like a drop off of quality. That's how I felt about it.
Sure.
And also, I mean, it's a fucking visual novel gameplay. What?
Sure.
And the reason why I think it would go above Alundra, I mean, we've said this before, but Alundra, it's obviously very obtuse at times. Like, sure. I love it. I love the story, but the puzzles can be very like, what the fuck? I don't even know what's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's true. Yeah.
How do you feel about Snatcher?
I mean that third act fell off a cliff.
That third act that wasn't even gonna be there.
That is oftentimes that's a problem, right? Is that the game does have clearly it ends at a certain place.
Yeah, it's a very weird ending point, and the gameplay, the shooting, not its best thing. I mean, the rest of the stuff is good, but the shooting part,
I really like the environment of Snatcher. I think it's
so do I.
Cool
it's great
environment.
Absolutely.
And then, like, Beautiful Joe is the closest comparison. It is a beat 'em up, right? It's a 2D.
True.
And it does. How do you feel about it? Because Brandon, you're the big Beautiful Joe guy, so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the combat in Beautiful Joe is a little more involved. With all the different powers you can do with slow down, speed up, zoom in. So, and they both have. I would personally put it below Beautiful Joe. Because I think Beautiful Joe just has, it's more engaging in terms of its combat. I like the art style more, and Beautiful Joe, I was just really captivated by it. But it doesn't, obviously Beautiful Joe doesn't have that, multiplayer aspect that, Castle Crashers does. But Castle Crashers
game, which was not good.
Oh, what? No, it wasn't.
Wasn't it?
It was on Beautiful Joe Red Hot Rumble. It was a weird like brawler, like Smash Brothers type of game.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, that game sucks.
Not good.
But
so we finally got it, but it was bad.
I would say Beautiful Joe. I mean, it's cool, but it's also kind of prohibitively difficult at times. Like sometimes, just like fuck, this game is a bitch.
It's a platinum game for you. Or, well, I guess a Clover Studios game for you.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. But I don't know, man. I think Castle Crash is better. Not by much, but I think it's better. And I also think it's better than Kid Icarus and Uncharted.
I think Beautiful Joe's better than Kid Icarus too, but here we are.
Yeah.
Sam, where are you at?
I mean, I could put it above. My limit is Kid Icarus. I don't think it's better than Kid Icarus personally.
God damn.
Weird take.
I mean, I agree. That's the secret. I'd be on it below Joe.
Kid Icarus is a game I want to love so much more.
Except half of it is broken.
I do really like that game a lot. I'm really okay with it where it is, but man, there's so many. If the whole game was just cool.
Yeah. That'd be nice. It
exudes a lot of charm.
It does.
Yeah.
It fucking does. It absolutely does.
I mean, so does Castle Crashers, right?
Yeah, that does too.
Yeah.
But with the lawless enthusiasm.
No, I feel bad because it's just I don't know. Castle Crashers. I wish that there was a little bit more character to the characters. Like.
Sure.
I mean, it's very much of its ilk of where it came from, right? Like it's a
fair thing to wish for. I feel like,
but your friends are the other characters.
Yeah, I mean, the environment has character. The bosses, all the things you encounter. That's where the character comes in. Sure. I would say. All right, so
So
We're getting things done.
So
It's been a lengthy discussion on this game.
Yeah.
So where are we feeling this?
well, I would be fine with it below Joe.
I'm fine with that too.
Okay.
Well, Saf, are you going down there?
Yeah, let's go down there. Let's all go down there together, hand in hand.
I'm not going down there.
4-player co-op.
4 players.
Just like Castle Crash.
71.
Fine, whatever. Jesus Christ.
I mean, it's 16 points higher than where I originally pitched it. So, you got some work done.
I
Castle
guess.
Crashers is 71 on the list. Surrounding it, we have at 69 Kid Icarus Uprising, 70 Beautiful Joe, 71 Castle Crasher, 72 Snatcher, 73 Hotel Dusk Room 215. That is the list. That is the podcast for this week. Before I do our plugs, does anyone want the final phrase?
No.
Sure.
All right, Brandon. So before Brandon goes to that, we make a podcast every Monday that you can listen to. You can make sure not to miss it by following us on Twitter, on your social media platforms of choice, including Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and on your podcast service of choice, which I assume is what you're using to listen to it right now, or SoundCloud.
And also,
you can follow us there too, or to
and
YouTube.
also, if you're subscribed in YouTube, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, but no,
You get some bonus videos on YouTube.
This Monday, we do every other Thursday the Game Club, wherein a game is played, it is discussed in detail, and it is put on the list. So if you want to keep track of the lore, I mean, we talked right there about Snatcher, right? That's a recent Game Club game, not recent, but that's a Game Club game
Not
you
recent.
can go back and listen to. Hotel Dusk, that's a more recent one you could listen to, right? Alundra.
No, they
you
were
wanna
both
go-
around the same time.
Was it? I feel like there was
No.
Well, it was 2 rounds. I picked both of those games back to back. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like
Which is
2
like
months
10
later.
weeks secretly, right? But whatever.
Yeah.
secretly, yeah.
Alundra is one of the old ones. You listen to the old ancient pre-ills.
Really old one. Man, we were young back then.
Oh boy, innocent podcasting days.
Yeah.
So all that you can make sure not to miss by subscribing and having the feed available to you, right? If you enjoy this podcast, you could help us out by rating 5 stars on your podcast service of choice, or liking on YouTube. And also, we have a Patreon. If you want to throw us a couple bucks a month, we appreciate it. And you can get to a Discord where we chat. You can see us yell about Shovel Knight till we're blue in the
God.
face.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
You can see how stupid we are.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm pretty smart.
If there was,
I fucking did it. Doing well.
But that is the podcast in general. Well, thank you all for listening. And now, Brandon, your final phrase.
All right. Well, I want to start off by just saying Game Club episode coming up pretty soon about Indivisible. So look forward to that. It's coming out later this week if you're listening to this on Monday when we upload it. So it'll be up on Thursday. I hope you take a listen because that was a cool game. But, everybody here, I want to say that I appreciate you all. My time might be coming to an end real soon because I might get coronavirus. I'm going to PAX East, and, a lot of companies are pulling out because they're afraid, but not me, okay? I want to play Animal Crossing, and I want to play it early, and I want to hug Isabel, and I want to get that cute Isabel pin, okay? So you see me down in Boston. I'm going to be having fun. Coronavirus or not, you can't stop me. So everybody go out there, play some video games, use some sanitizer, eat take some vitamin C, make sure you're healthy, drink some H2O, wash your hands, and be nice.
Be nice.